You've watched Strange Inheritance. Now let's unpack it. I'm Melissa Francis, and this is Strange Inheritance Unpacked. We are going to show you never-before-seen outtakes, go behind the scenes, and we promise not to mess with Texas. So you know the story. A man inherits his father's massive collection of Texas memorabilia. While the collection includes guns of every shape and size, there are certain weapons that really stick out. Here's one of my favorite scenes.
What's this gun?
This is a sawed-off shotgun that was carried by the Barrow gang.
The Barrows, like Bonnie and Clyde Barrows?
Like Bonnie and Clyde. You want to hold a piece of history?
Whoa, it's heavy. Unbelievable. Dad loved the whole Bonnie and Clyde story, didn't he?
Loved the story. As we all do. It still holds up to today.
And you have to wonder why. They killed a lot of people.
Fascination with the Americana and the gangsters.
It's so true. Why does everyone seem to love and be so fascinated by killers Bonnie and Clyde? Let's ask our Unpacked panel. Fox Business anchor David Asman, author Nicole Lapin, and comedian and motivational speaker Jeff Havens. This is amazing to me.
Wait a minute, we're asking a motivational speaker.
Well,
why Americans
what motivates you? I mean, it is sort of amazing to me, but people love Bonnie and Clyde, but I mean, they're sociopaths. They're
they
killers.
are, but you know, Americans have always loved the gangster movies were some of the first
Al Capone,
movies from Hollywood.
Scarface,
I mean, look,
all that stuff.
all of those early movies back in the 20s and 30s were based on racketeering. Of course, we had Prohibition back then. There was a lot of mystique about that.
But I think it
goes way back.
It's people. It's the inherent distrust of government and the independence that we have in America. Just don't tell me what to do. And these people did not let anyone tell them what to do. And I think that's why we really like them.
But she totally disagrees.
No, I agree. But I like, Americana, they celebrate good and bad. The bad is always more fun to celebrate, truth be told. And I think Bonnie and Clyde represent sort of the opposition to the existing system. They were the ultimate outsiders.
But you're right.
Rebels.
They killed 12 people, at least. So, I mean, these were nasty people that deserved what they got, which was to get gunned down.
So was Al Capone and all of that, too. And we still kind of memorialize that as well.
Yeah, I mean, we don't see a lot of female killers as much as many female gangsters, and there's something about the romance of this.
I totally agree. It's about time more women start shooting people.
Yes, thank goodness for that.
Yeah.
It seems like no one was more fascinated with the lure of Bonnie and Clyde than Robert Davis himself, and it wasn't just the guns. Here's our first never-before-seen outtake involving another of Davis's prized possessions.
Did Dad ever meet Bonnie and Clyde's family, or did he ever get up close and personal to the people behind the things he collected?
Actually, it's funny you mentioned that. We acquired a lot of these items for Bonnie and Clyde. Some of these were taken from the police officers. Frank Hamer, who was the Texas Ranger who ambushed them, they were allowed to take things out of the car. But some of the family took personal items like their clothes or watches or this and that. And Clyde's sister, Marie, collected a lot of that, acquired a lot of this stuff, and after time she realized, I can make some money doing this. So my dad actually met Marie. She auctioned off a watch that Clyde carried, and I actually have a picture here with my dad and Marie.
Oh my. So he got the watch.
Got the watch.
Can you imagine today if something like that happened? I mean, now that's disturbing the scene. There's all the evidence. In those days, they got to walk away with it. I mean,
that's right.
It was very interesting over time, too, how the families tried to meet each other. Like, it wasn't just about the items. I mean, they wanted to get to know everyone involved. It's very macabre.
Well, you also hear that today, though. I mean, you hear the victims sometimes kind of developing relationships with the people who keep them hostage and all this kind of... It's just a very weird psychology that goes into this sort of relationship or this sort of activity.
In that final scene, I mean, when they showed it and they were all waiting for them on the other side, I guess it was on the other side of the hill, and they came through and they just shot that car
a lot of bullet holes.
To pieces. I mean, there were a lot of bullet holes. They didn't leave any room for error. Again, can you imagine something like that happening today?
The interesting thing is that there is a difference. I started out by saying we've been fascinated by gangster culture for a long time. It's true. But nowadays, something happened when the movie Bonnie and Clyde came out. Remember the movie with me? I can't remember who played the actors that played Bonnie and Clyde, but it came out in the late 60s, early 70s.
Warren Beatty.
Warren Beatty. But that really glorified them in a way that the old 1920s and 30s and 40s films did not. They showed the bad guys as bad guys, and usually at the end of the film, they got their just rewards. In the case of Bonnie and Clyde and movies since then, they have become kind of heroic figures.
And then gangsters started rapping, and that changed.
Hey, right, that changed the
I
whole
think that went
All
with
right,
that, yeah.
Let's go to the remote and bring in the man helping the Davis family sell these items, Bobby Livingston of RR Auctions. So what is it, in your opinion? I mean, why are people so drawn to Bonnie and Clyde? What is it?
Well, after a shootout in Joplin, Missouri, the police found an undeveloped roll of film of Bonnie and Clyde posing, holding weapons, looking very glamorous. And this was the time of John Dillinger running through the highways. And, as you said, there were movies of gangsters, and they published these photos, and the public became, very, very seriously involved in the story of Bonnie and Clyde, and they were glamorized. But the truth was far from that. It was not a glamorous life running from the police.
Looking at the rest of the collection, because we got a peek, there was that conquistador helmet. There were so many things in there.
Swords.
Yeah, what else caught your attention?
Well, Bob Davis had some of the most incredible Alamo-related documents I've ever seen. There was one where William Barrett Travis, the commander of the Alamo, is actually paying somebody for cannon platforms to be outside the Alamo. He knew the Mexican army was approaching San Antonio, and he had to hand out IOUs to local ranchers for food and to lumber yards to build the fortifications to fight off Santa Anna. So those were mind-blowing documents. So Bob Davis had an incredible eye for quality material.
Bobby, stay where you are. We're going to talk to you more in just a second. Bonnie and Clyde were just a small piece of the puzzle. We were talking about this in the Davis collection. Up next, he's going to tell us what else was there, what caught his eye, and why the ATF wasn't the only obstacle to selling those infamous guns. We'll be right back.
And this is a sample of the different weapons used by the guards over the years, including submachine guns. And over here is something that you might find interesting. Everyone knows about Bonnie and Clyde, and this is Joe Krausen, and he was killed when Bonnie and Clyde raided the Eastham farm and broke out some of their gang. He was an officer working there. And in the end is the reason that Bonnie and Clyde were killed.
Texans don't take too kindly to killing one of their officers.
That's correct.